It was 2 a.m., according to the ticking of the wall clock. Our bedroom was still. The only sound was the soft snoring of Ethan, my husband, who I believed had been fast asleep for an hour. But a slight movement at the edge of the bed snapped my eyes open. He had been pretending to sleep under the thick duvet this whole time. Ethan moved slowly, with extreme care. He sat up from his lying position, reached for the phone on the nightstand, and tiptoed towards our bedroom balcony. The moonlight, slipping through a crack in the curtains, cast the shadow of his muscular body. The body of the man I once loved to madness, the man whose status I elevated from a mere employee to the director of one of my company's subsidiaries. I sharpened my hearing. My heart was pounding. Not from love, but from the adrenaline of a hatred that was slowly consuming my sanity. "Hello, my love." His voice was a whisper, but it cut through my ears, which had grown accustomed to being on high alert. "Yes, she's asleep. Sleeps like a log. She has no idea about anything." There was a moment of silence. Ethan chuckled softly, a laugh that made me nauseous. "Don't worry, Clarissa. It's all taken care of. The property deeds for the commercial building and even the shares of the parent company. I managed to forge her signature last month. Our paid-off attorney did an excellent job. Now, in the eyes of the law, almost 18% of Aurora's assets are already in my name. She's a fool, a woman who blindly trusts her husband. I bit my lower lip hard until I felt the sting. That fool, he said, took 7 years to build the business empire she inherited from her father, grew the assets, and he thinks I'm idiotic enough not to notice the movement of my own fortune. "Tomorrow is the big day," Ethan continued, his voice growing more animated. "I've already told her I have a business trip to London for a week, but we're actually flying to Paris, my love. We'll get married there. Then we'll go on a honeymoon all over Europe with that idiot's money." My tears didn't fall. Strange. Normally, a wife would break down hearing something like this, but I felt cold. My heart had turned to ice. It hurt, but the immense contempt overshadowed everything. "Oh, by the way, about the jewelry and cash in the safe. I'll take it all tomorrow morning. You know, the limit is in the millions, right? We'll be able to shop till we drop on Fifth Avenue." I heard the sound of a distant kiss through the phone. "I love you too, Clarissa. Just a little more patience. By tomorrow night, we'll be free. Goodbye to poverty. Goodbye, Aurora, that boring workaholic." Ethan hung up and returned to the room. I immediately regulated my breathing, creating a steady rhythm as if I were having a pleasant dream. He got into bed, pulled up the duvet, and what turned my stomach was the kiss he placed on my forehead. "Sleep well, my benefactor," he whispered, so low it was barely audible. But I heard it. I couldn't go back to sleep that night. My eyes remained fixed on the dark ceiling, piecing together every part of the plan I already had in place. There was something Ethan didn't know. 3 months ago, when I first smelled another woman's perfume on his clothes, I hired a private investigator. I knew who Clarissa was, a bankrupt former men's magazine model, drowning in debt with online payday lenders. And as for the properties, Ethan could think he was clever for bribing an attorney, but he forgot that I am Aurora. The attorney he bribed was actually one of my most trusted men, who was simply playing along. The documents Ethan signed weren't a transfer of property, but a confession of debt and a waiver of his rights to any marital assets, something completely legal if his infidelity could be proven. He didn't transfer my assets to his name. Instead, he had just signed his own financial death sentence. But that wasn't enough. Reclaiming my assets through legal channels was too clean an exit for a traitor like him. I want him to fly high, to touch the clouds, only to then let him fall from a bottomless cliff. Tomorrow, his performance would begin. The morning arrived with a radiant sun that contrasted with the darkness in my heart. I woke up first. I prepared breakfast like a devoted wife. His favorite avocado toast with artisanal bacon was already served on the table when he came down, his face fresh and brimming with hypocrisy. "Good morning, my love," he greeted before sitting down and starting to eat. "Wow, this is delicious. You really are the best wife." I smiled as I poured coffee into his cup. "Of course. You have that business trip to London today." I have to make sure you go well fed and healthy. Ethan choked slightly and then let out a forced laugh. Ah, yes, London. A very big project. I might be very busy, so if I'm slow to reply to messages, don't be upset, okay? I understand, honey. You work so hard for our future. And for Sophia, I replied sweetly. Sophia, our only 5-year-old daughter, was still asleep in her room. Thank goodness she didn't have to see her father's phony face that morning. Suddenly, Ethan dropped his fork. His face turned serious. His manipulative mode had been activated. Aurora, it's just that for the operations over there, I need a significant amount of liquid funds. The company credit card is maxed out from yesterday's vendor payments. Could you transfer to my personal debit card or top up my account with, say, $1 million? $1 million. An exorbitant amount for a 1-week business trip. He really wanted to clean me out before fleeing. I looked him straight in the eyes. There was no trace of guilt in them, only greed. $1 million? Isn't that a bit much for lodging? We have to entertain clients. My love. You know, it takes capital to convince investors. Once we secure the project, the money will multiply by 10, he persuaded me. He took my hand, the same hand that the night before had held the phone to call his lover. All right, I said with a sweet smile. I'll make the transfer at noon. You just focus on getting ready. A triumphant smile spread across his lips. Thank you, my love. When noon arrived, Ethan started to move. I peeked through the crack of my home office door. He opened the safe, whose code I had given him as a sign of false trust. He quickly took the stacks of dollars, the diamond jewelry inherited from my mother, a Rolex watch, and several small gold bars. He put everything into a small black backpack. Then he placed the backpack inside a large Louis Vuitton suitcase, covering it with some Gucci and Armani clothes to make it look like a simple suitcase of clothes. Perfect, he whispered, and I could barely hear him. In the afternoon, I did indeed transfer $1 million to his account. A notification pinged on his phone, and he shouted with joy, "The money's here! You're incredible, Aurora! Be careful on your trip, my love," I said without emotion. Night fell. Ethan showered and got ready. He said his flight left at midnight, so he would head to the airport at 10 p.m. While he waited, he played with Sophia until she fell asleep. At 9 p.m., Ethan went to the bathroom, a habit of his when he was nervous. It was my chance. With my heart racing, in just 10 minutes, I entered the walk-in closet. I already had an identical Louis Vuitton suitcase prepared. Same model, same color. I had even replicated the smallest scratch on the handle. The only difference was the contents. I opened Ethan's real suitcase. The gleam of gold and stacks of bills greeted me. Without wasting time, I closed it again and hid it on the highest shelf of the closet, behind a pile of linens. Then, I dragged out the fake suitcase I had prepared. The contents. A mocking smile appeared on my lips. It didn't contain diamonds or money. It contained piles of old, dirty robes from our housekeeper, Maria, greasy kitchen rags, several bricks to match the weight, and stacks of old newspapers. On top of everything, I placed a set of cheap, torn women's underwear and a note with a short message. I closed the bombshell suitcase, locked it, and placed it in the exact spot where the original had been. Done. A minute later, Ethan came out of the bathroom. He looked fresh and smelled good. He glanced at the suitcase. Not a shadow of suspicion. "I'm off, Aurora," he said goodbye. He dragged the suitcase. "That looks heavy for just a week." "Don't forget my gift," I said, holding back the laughter that threatened to burst from my throat. "Of course. I'll bring you something you'll never forget," he replied with a double meaning. He kissed my cheek. A Judas kiss. Then he left the house with an air of self-satisfaction, dragging the suitcase full of kitchen trash that he believed was the treasure for his future. I stood at the door, waving. When the Uber he was in disappeared around the corner, a wide smile spread across my lips. "Be careful, my love. I hope you enjoy Paris with the torn robes." I went back inside, locked the door, and poured myself a glass of expensive wine. I sat on the sofa, watching the wall clock. The The trip to the airport would take an hour. Check-in and security. They probably wouldn't open the suitcase until they got to the hotel in Paris the next day. But my first surprise would arrive much sooner. When he arrived at the airport, he would receive my farewell message. My phone vibrated. A notification from the banking app. Your husband's bank account has been frozen. Ah, the game had begun. The atmosphere in JFK's Terminal 4 that night was quite busy, but for Ethan, the world seemed to belong to just the two of them. He got out of the car with arrogance, dragging the Louis Vuitton suitcase he believed held his future. In his mind, the suitcase carried not just clothes, but a ticket to freedom dollars in cash, gold bars, and diamonds worth enough to live in luxury in Europe for years without ever having to work again. He walked towards the international departures check-in area. There, near a large column, a woman in a camel-colored trench coat, huge sunglasses, and a red beret was waiting. It was Clarissa, with a look that demanded attention. She looked like a celebrity in disguise, when in reality she was nothing more than a social climber about to become the legal wife of a fugitive. You took your time, my love, Clarissa said in a syrupy voice when Ethan approached. She clung to his arm tightly, not caring about people's stares. I was getting impatient. Is our business class ready? Ethan grinned from ear to ear and kissed Clarissa's cheek. Of course, everything's ready. See this suitcase? Ethan patted the suitcase in his hand with pride. It's the key to our happiness. It's loaded to the brim. Clarissa's eyes glittered behind her sunglasses. Really? You brought everything? Didn't that fool Aurora suspect anything? Ethan let out a contemptuous laugh. She even made me breakfast and kissed my hand before I left. She thinks I'm working hard for her and our daughter. Poor deluded woman. They both laughed quietly, a laugh laden with moral bankruptcy. After a smooth check-in and security process, since Aurora hadn't reported anything yet, they entered an exclusive VIP lounge. Ethan ordered a glass of champagne. He felt on top of the world. The adrenaline of success was intoxicating. While sipping his champagne, Ethan took out his phone. He looked at Aurora's photo on WhatsApp. The innocent face of his wife smiling while hugging Sophia. That face used to bring him peace. Now it only reminded him of his inferiority complex from living in the shadow of his wife's success. What are you doing? Clarissa asked, seeing Ethan staring at his phone. I'm going to end this charade, Ethan said. I don't want to wait until tomorrow. I want her to know right now. I want to imagine her devastated face as we fly above the clouds. Clarissa smiled maliciously. Do it, my love. Let her know who won. Ethan's fingers danced across the phone screen. He typed a message he had long been composing in his mind, words designed to hurt, insult, and destroy Aurora's composure. Without hesitation, he pressed the send button. Across the city, in the luxurious and now silent house, I was sitting on the living room sofa with a glass of red wine. I had turned off the lights. Only the glow of the muted television illuminated my face. My phone vibrated on the marble table. I glanced at it. My husband's name appeared on the screen. Ah, it was time. I calmly picked up the phone, unlocked it, and read the long message that had just arrived. Hello, you fool. Just so you know, as you read this, I'm about to take off. I'm not going to London. I'm going to Paris with Clarissa, a woman who knows how to make me much happier than you, so rigid and boring. As of now, I'm leaving you. Don't expect me to come back. And your fortune? I've already taken it all. Check your safe, it's empty. Deeds, cash, jewelry, it's all in my hands here, in the suitcase I'm carrying. I've emptied your bank accounts too. You thought you were so smart for owning a company. Now you're just a poor, miserable wretch. Goodbye, Aurora. Enjoy your new life as a poor divorcee. Clarissa and I will live like kings in Europe with your money. I read the message once, then twice. No tears, no hysterical fit, just immense, perverse amusement. He really thought he was so sure of himself. He really thought he had won. Ethan expected me to throw the phone against the wall, to scream, cry, and call him begging. He wanted to witness that drama. But I'm a chess player, not a soap opera actress. With fingers that didn't tremble, I typed a short reply. I chose the widest smiling emoji, a yellow face with squinting eyes and a full-toothed grin. Okay, have fun. Just that. 3 words, and a symbol that represented the death of his ego. Then, after hitting send, I immediately opened my contacts app. I searched for the number of Mr. Reynolds, the private banking manager who handled all my corporate and personal accounts. Hello, Mrs. Sterling, it's late. How can I help you? Mr. Reynolds' voice was courteous. Mr. Reynolds, sorry to bother you. I want to activate the Level 1 security protocol we discussed last week, I said without emotion. There was a brief silence on the other end. Mr. Reynolds knew exactly what that meant. Are you certain, ma'am? This will freeze all access for supplementary cards in Mr. Sterling's name, including the priority debit card you just funded, and block his access to mobile banking. The assets will be completely locked. Do it now, Mr. Reynolds. Right now. And one more thing, report his credit cards as stolen so that if he tries to use them abroad, the terminal will either decline them or security will detain him. Yes, ma'am. I'm processing it now. It's done. All of Mr. Sterling's access is paralyzed as of this moment. Thank you, Mr. Reynolds. Good night. I hung up. My smile widened even more. Up in the air, Ethan was holding a financial time bomb. Back in the airport VIP lounge, Ethan's brow furrowed when Aurora's reply came. Okay, have fun. Ethan stared at his phone screen in confusion. Just that? He muttered. What's wrong? Is she angry? Clarissa asked, leaning in eagerly. No. She even sent a smiling emoji and said, Have fun, Ethan replied with a tone of disbelief. She didn't insult me. She didn't call. Clarissa burst out laughing. Her laugh was so sharp that several people turned. Oh, she must be in shock. Her brain short-circuited. Or she hasn't checked the safe yet. She probably thinks you're joking, my love. Leave her. Later, when she discovers the empty safe and her accounts at zero, then she'll go crazy. Ethan tried to rationalize the situation. Clarissa was right. Maybe Aurora thought it was a joke or was so shocked she couldn't react normally. What a strange woman. Whatever. The important thing is, we're free. The boarding call for business class passengers was announced. They stood up. Ethan dragged the suitcase possessively, not allowing airport staff to touch it. This is my life, he thought. They walked to the gate. As they passed the ticket check, Ethan felt a slight nervousness. The fear that Aurora had already alerted the police, but the staff just smiled and let them through. Ethan breathed a sigh of relief. Safe. I've done it. Inside the plane, they settled into seats that converted into beds. A flight attendant approached, offering them drinks. Ethan ordered champagne again. To our new life, Ethan said, raising his glass to Clarissa. To new Hermes bags and shopping sprees in Paris, Clarissa replied, winking. The plane began to move towards the runway. Ethan looked out the window, watching the bright lights of New York City recede as the plane ascended. He felt like a king abandoning his old, crumbling kingdom to build a new palace. Goodbye, New York. Goodbye, Aurora, he whispered. He didn't know that the cards in his wallet were now just worthless pieces of plastic. He didn't know that the suitcase in the overhead compartment contained old, smelly robes. He didn't know that the woman he had called a fool was sitting calmly at home, monitoring his every move and preparing to unleash the hounds as soon as they arrived. Ethan closed his eyes, picturing himself strolling down Fifth Avenue, walking into a Louis Vuitton boutique, and buying Clarissa anything she wanted with Aurora's platinum debit card. The fantasy was so beautiful, so real. My love, Clarissa whispered beside him, her head resting on his shoulder. When we get to Paris, we'll go straight to that 5-star hotel, right? I want a massage. My whole body aches. Anything for you, my queen. We have $1 million on the card and millions of dollars in the suitcase. Even if you wanted to buy the Eiffel Tower, I'd try to get it for you, he joked. They laughed again. Their last laugh before the storm. The plane pierced through the dark night clouds, carrying 2 greedy people towards a destiny rewritten by a wounded wife. Below, New York slowly faded, but Aurora's revenge was already flying faster than that plane, waiting for them in Paris with a deadly smile. At home, I set down my empty wine glass. I went to Sophia's room. I kissed my daughter's forehead as she slept peacefully. "Daddy's gone, sweetie," I whispered to her. "He chose the path to his own destruction. Starting tomorrow, we'll build our own kingdom, without parasites, without traitors." I returned to the master bedroom. I looked at the empty side of Ethan's bed. Cold, but for some reason, I felt warm that night. The ache in my heart was still there, but the thrill of watching his downfall was stronger. I couldn't wait to receive that panicked call. I couldn't wait to hear the roar of a lion turn into the squeak of a trapped rat. Paris would be the silent witness, not to their love, but to their stupidity. And I, Aurora, would watch the show from the front row, even if I was thousands of miles away. The plane's wheels touched down smoothly on the runway at Charles de Gaulle Airport in Paris. The gentle jolt of the landing was like the opening applause for the new life Ethan craved. Beside him, Clarissa stretched, removed her silk sleep mask, and looked at Ethan with a triumphant smile. "We're here, my love," Clarissa whispered. "It smells like freedom. And wealth." Ethan nodded, adjusting his shirt collar. "Come on, Paris awaits its queen." They deplaned with their heads held high. The cold Parisian autumn air caressed their skin as they exited the terminal, but to Ethan, that air was as warm as the embrace of money. Throughout immigration and baggage claim, Ethan never let go of the Louis Vuitton suitcase handle. He refused help from porters and staff, guarding the suitcase as if it were his own heart. The irony was that it did, in fact, contain his destruction. "Are we going straight to the hotel?" Clarissa asked as they queued for an executive taxi. "Of course. Les Maurice, across from the Tuileries garden. I've booked the best suite," Ethan replied boastfully. "Then we'll open this treasure chest. We'll bathe in money and go shopping until the stores close." They got into a gleaming black Mercedes. During the ride through Paris, Clarissa busied herself posting stories on her social media, which she intentionally hid from friends she had in common with Aurora. But she forgot that Aurora had eyes everywhere. Ethan, for his part, just smiled as he watched the Eiffel Tower in the distance, feeling like he had conquered the world. Upon arriving at the luxurious 5-star hotel, a uniformed bellman opened their door. A giant crystal chandelier in the lobby reflected off the gleaming marble floor. Ethan swaggered to the reception desk while Clarissa sat on a velvet sofa, pretending to be busy on her phone to look like a socialite. "Bonjour, monsieur. How may I help you?" The receptionist greeted politely in English with a thick French accent. "I have a reservation under Ethan Sterling, the presidential suite," Ethan said arrogantly, placing his passport on the counter. The receptionist typed for a moment on her computer. "Ah, oui, Monsieur Sterling. For the deposit and full payment for a 1-week stay, may I have your credit card?" "Of course." Ethan pulled out a gleaming black priority debit card. The card he believed held the $1 million transferred by Aurora the day before. He handed it over with a flourish. The receptionist inserted the card into the terminal. A moment of silence. Beep. A red light flashed. The receptionist frowned. She tried again. Beep. The same red light. "Monsieur, the car has been declined," she said politely, but her gaze had shifted slightly. Ethan let out a forced laugh. "Ah, impossible. It's a priority card with no limit. Perhaps your machine is broken, or the connection is weak. Try again." The woman tried a third time. The same result, declined. "Monsieur, it says here, retain card. I should keep it for security reasons, but as you are a guest, I will return it. Do you have another card?" Ethan's face began to grow damp. He felt a cold sweat run down his back. "This has to be a system error from the bank in the States." "Useless banks," he muttered. "Use this one." Ethan pulled out his personal platinum credit card, a supplementary card from Aurora's main account. Beep. Declined. He pulled out a third card. Declined. The line behind Ethan was growing longer. Other elegantly dressed guests began to whisper and look at him with disdain, a look that seemed to say, "Who is this poor man pretending to be rich?" Clarissa, noticing the situation, quickly approached. "What's going on, my love? Why is it taking so long?" "This is embarrassing," she whispered with irritation. "All the cards are failing," Ethan whispered back, panicking. "Do you have your credit card? Use yours first. I'll pay you back in cash when we open the suitcase. There are millions of dollars in the suitcase. Don't worry." "What do you mean, don't worry? You said everything was ready," she said, her brow furrowed. She took out her own credit card, one with a modest limit that she guarded carefully. Fortunately, Clarissa's card worked for the one-night deposit. "Just one night, monsieur?" the receptionist asked. "Yes, one night for now. I'll pay the rest in cash tomorrow," Ethan snapped, snatching the room key and pulling sharply on Clarissa's hand. His pride had been shattered in that lavish lobby. They walked to the elevator in silence. Anger was consuming Clarissa. "You embarrassed me," she said as soon as the elevator doors closed. "You claim to be a director, and all your cards are declined? Maybe Aurora already knows." "Impossible," Ethan denied quickly, though doubt was beginning to creep in. "It's probably just system maintenance, or Aurora only blocked the cards. She doesn't know about the cash and gold in the suitcase. That's what's most important. It's worth much more than these damn cards." Upon reaching the luxurious suite, Ethan had no time to admire the view of the Eiffel Tower from the window. He immediately threw the Louis Vuitton suitcase onto the king-sized bed. "Let's prove it," Ethan said, panting. He looked at Clarissa. "You're about to see mountains of money in gold. You'll regret complaining earlier." Clarissa crossed her arms. "Fine, open it already." Ethan's hands trembled as he spun the combination on the lock. Click. One latch opened. Click. The other opened. Ethan's heart pounded, imagining the gleam of gold that would soothe his soul. With a dramatic gesture, he pulled the zipper and flung the suitcase wide open. "What?" His words caught in his throat. His eyes widened, nearly popping out of their sockets. His breath hitched as if an invisible hand were strangling him. Silence. The luxurious room filled with a deathly silence. The only sound was the ticking of a clock on the wall. Inside the suitcase, there were no stacks of green bills, no glint of gold bars, no velvet boxes with diamonds. There were only piles of dirty laundry. Clarissa moved closer, narrowing her eyes. "What is this?" Ethan was paralyzed. His trembling hands reached into the suitcase's contents. He pulled out a faded garment with a hole in the armpit. It was an old robe belonging to Maria, their housekeeper. He pulled out another piece of cloth, a kitchen rag stained with grease and dried sauce. The sour smell of old sweat and spices instantly filled the fragrant hotel room. Beneath the pile of robes and rags were several red bricks wrapped in old newspapers, the weight that had made the suitcase feel credible. "Where's the money?" Clarissa screamed. "Ethan, where is the money?" Ethan rummaged through the suitcase like a madman, throwing the old robes onto the floor, scattering the old newspapers, searching for a secret compartment that didn't exist. "No, this can't be," Ethan whispered, his face as pale as a corpse. "I packed it myself. I saw the gold, the money." Then his eyes fixed on something. At the bottom of the suitcase, under the pile of garbage, was a fragrant pink envelope, a stark contrast to the nauseating contents. Trembling, Ethan opened the envelope. Inside was a photograph and a piece of paper. The photo was a selfie of Aurora, smiling sweetly as she held the stacks of dollars and the diamond necklace that should have been in the suitcase. And the note on the paper was written in beautiful gold ink. "Hello, my dear ex-husband. How's Paris? It's lovely. I hope you enjoy my new fall collection of robes. They're Maria's old ones. I was going to throw them out, but I thought they'd look better on you and your favorite whore than being burned. Did you think I didn't know? Did you think I was stupid? I switched the suitcase while you were in the bathroom, Ethan. While you were busy flushing your own crap, I was flushing mine too. You, out of my life. Enjoy Paris without a cent. Your cards are dead. Your fortune is zero. Oh, and by the way, Clarissa, I hope you like poor men, because Ethan is now poorer than a beggar on Times Square. Happy life as vagabonds abroad. With love, Aurora, the true owner of your wealth. The paper slipped from Ethan's grasp. His knees buckled. He collapsed onto the thick carpet, surrounded by hole-ridden robes and kitchen rags. Ethan! Clarissa's scream shattered the silence. The woman snatched the paper, read it, and then threw her purse at Ethan's face. You imbecile! You liar! You stupid, stupid idiot! Clarissa screamed, hitting Ethan with her purse. You said you were rich. You said you had everything, and you only brought trash. We're in Paris, Ethan. In Paris with no money. My card only covers one night here. What are we going to eat tomorrow? How are we going to get back? Ethan didn't respond. He just stared blankly at the pile of bricks. His world had crumbled. The hotel ceiling felt like it was collapsing on him. He remembered Aurora's smile that morning, and her kiss on his hand, the avocado toast. Okay, have fun. Aurora's message. He understood everything now. It wasn't a greeting, it was a death sentence. Outside the window, the Eiffel Tower sparkled beautifully, as if mocking two fools who had just fallen from the top of the world to the depths of hell in just a few minutes. The first night in Paris, which should have been filled with passion and luxury, turned into a no-holds-barred brawl. The hotel's presidential suite was a chaotic mess, not from love, but from war. You animal! You liar! Clarissa screamed, her voice hoarse after 2 hours of nonstop insults. She had thrown pillows, a small vase, and even the room service menu at Ethan, who cowered in a corner of the sofa. Ethan's once arrogant face was now contorted, with a red scratch on his cheek, a mark from Clarissa's nails when they had fought over his wallet, only to find the remaining cash amounted to a few dollars and some coins. Clarissa, calm down. We need to think clearly, Ethan defended himself, holding up his hands. Insulting me won't change what's in the suitcase. Think clearly? Clarissa scoffed. Tears of rage smudged her mascara, making her look like a ghost. You dragged me overseas, promising me Hermes bags and trips around Europe, and all you bring is garbage. You know, Ethan, I left my old sponsor for you. I bet everything on you because I thought you'd succeeded in tricking your wife. Turns out you were the one who got tricked. Those words, you were the one who got tricked, reverberated in Ethan's heart, replaying in his mind. The image of Aurora smiling as she handed him the suitcase haunted him. How could he have been so foolish, so confident? Believing Aurora was just a simple, ignorant housewife. Aurora was a businesswoman accustomed to reading her opponent's moves, and Ethan, her own husband, was the easiest one to read. We still have the return tickets, right? Clarissa asked suddenly, her eyes glinting with hope. Check your email. The return tickets. Ethan fumbled for his phone in his pocket. He tried to open the flight confirmation email, but bad luck seemed to be clinging to him. Damn it, Ethan said. What? Don't tell me the tickets were canceled. Ethan's voice trembled. A notification just came in. The ticket purchase was canceled by the primary cardholder due to suspected fraud. Aurora canceled our return tickets. Clarissa let out a heart-wrenching scream and collapsed onto the floor, sobbing as she pounded the plush carpet. They were trapped on another continent, with no money, no return tickets, and the next morning they would have to leave the hotel, as the deposit on Clarissa's card only covered one night. Morning came to Paris with a gray sky, as if sympathizing with the fate of the two greedy individuals. At 11 a.m., the room phone rang. The receptionist reminded them of the checkout time. With heavy feet, Ethan and Clarissa left the room, their stomachs growling. They hadn't eaten since the plane. Hunger was beginning to devour their sanity, leaving only a primal instinct for survival. Ethan dragged the Louis Vuitton suitcase. He had already thrown out its contents. The bricks and rags were left in the bathroom trash can. Now the suitcase was empty, as light as his dignity. He still carried it because it was the only valuable thing he had left, hoping to sell it at some market. In the lobby, the receptionist's once friendly gaze had turned cold. The room key, monsieur, she said without a smile. After the formality, the hotel's revolving door spat them back onto the cold Paris sidewalk. The autumn wind, which chilled them to the bone, greeted them. Clarissa wrapped her thin trench coat tighter, shivering not just from the cold, but from fear. "What now?" Clarissa asked. "I'm hungry, Ethan. I want to eat." "I'm hungry too, Clarissa. Stop being so dramatic," Ethan yelled, the stress wearing his patience thin. "Come on, let's find a free Wi-Fi spot. I need to call Aurora. She's our only way out." "You're going to ask her for help? Have you no shame?" Clarissa scoffed. "I don't care about shame. Do you want to freeze to death here and become a vagrant?" They walked down the Rue de Rivoli. The patisseries displayed croissants and macarons in their windows, making their mouths water, but they could only swallow. The people passing by were stylishly dressed, laughing, and enjoying life. Ethan and Clarissa felt like discarded aliens. They finally found a public park with free Wi-Fi. Ethan sat on an icy bench, his hands trembling as he opened WhatsApp. His wife's name was still there. He had wanted to delete it before, but now that name was his only hope. He pressed the video call button. Ringing. Ringing. Ethan's heart nearly leaped out of his chest. "Answer. Aurora. Please answer." Suddenly, the screen changed. Aurora's face appeared. She was sitting in her large office chair, wearing an elegant white blazer. Behind her was the view of the Midtown Manhattan skyline. She looked powerful, beautiful, and most painfully for Ethan, immensely happy. "Hello, ex-husband," Aurora said without emotion. There was no anger in her voice, only a terrifying calm. "How's Paris? Enjoying the shopping?" "Aurora." Ethan's voice broke, on the verge of tears. "Aurora, help me. Help us. We're stranded. The cards don't work. The return tickets are canceled. We don't have a cent. We haven't eaten." On the screen, Aurora slowly sipped her coffee. "Oh, really? What a shame. I've heard the escargot there is delicious." "Aurora, don't joke. This is serious," Ethan pleaded, lowering his voice, swallowing his ego. "Forgive me, Aurora. I was wrong. I was a fool. I apologize for my betrayal. Please, just send us some money to buy return tickets. I promise I'll pay you back when I get to New York. I'll kneel at your feet." Clarissa, next to Ethan, also leaned into the screen, her face pleading. "Mrs. Sterling, please help us. I made a mistake." Aurora laughed, a crystalline but sharp laugh. "You two are funny. Yesterday, you were calling me a fool. Today, you're begging like drowned rats," Aurora said. Her gaze hardened. "Listen to me, Ethan. We've been divorced in the eyes of God since you left me." Via text message. "Legally, my lawyer is already processing it, so don't call me your wife anymore." "But Aurora, I'll die here." "That's your problem," Aurora cut in sharply. "I'm busy growing the company, expanding the business that was stagnant for so long because I was too busy taking care of a spoiled husband like you. Now, without the dead weight named Ethan, my company is soaring. I'm enjoying my fortune. Alone, with my daughter. No parasites. Aurora." If only for Sophia's sake. Ethan tried to play his last card, his daughter. Aurora's face turned to stone. "Don't you ever say my daughter's name with your filthy mouth. You lost the right to mention her when you tried to steal her future to have fun with your mistress. I've already told Sophia that her father went far away and might not come back because he chose the wrong path. She's fine. She's happy, even without a father who steals her mother's money. Aurora. It's over, Ethan. Enjoy your vacation. You wanted to be a vagrant in Paris? Go ahead. It's the punishment you deserve for a man who feeds his mistress with his wife's money. And for you, Clarissa," Aurora looked directly at Clarissa through the screen. "There you have him. He's all yours. Free of charge. No fortune, no position, no dignity. Enjoy the trash you stole. Click." The call ended. Ethan stared at the phone screen, which had returned to the home screen. Blank. His last hope had been mercilessly annihilated. "She's left us to die," Clarissa whispered, her face pale. The sun began to set, and the streetlights flickered on. The air grew colder. Their stomachs roared with hunger. They got up from the bench, not knowing where to go. "Sell that suitcase," Clarissa said suddenly. Let's find a second-hand shop. It's an original, right? Someone will surely buy it. A small spark of hope ignited in Ethan. True, this LV suitcase was worth a fortune. If they sold it quickly, they might have money for food and a cheap hotel. They walked, searching for a luxury second-hand store. After nearly 2 miles, they found a vintage shop that was still open. Ethan walked in confidently, placing the suitcase on the counter. I want to sell this. Louis Vuitton. Original, he said in broken English. The shop owner, an elderly man with glasses, examined the suitcase. He looked at the serial number, felt the material, checked the handle. The old man shook his head. Sorry, monsieur, I can't accept it. Why? It's original. I bought it on Madison Avenue, Ethan shouted, panicking. It may be original, the man replied with a French accent, but the handle is broken, the wheels are stuck, and it has a large scratch on the base. It's in poor condition. Besides, this model is old and no longer in high demand. We don't buy garbage. Garbage. That word again. That night, they took shelter under the beautiful Pont Neuf. 2 Americans, sitting back to back, Ethan clutched his empty, unsellable suitcase. Clarissa cried silently, her tears already run dry. On the river, a Seine cruise passed by with bright lights and party music. People were dancing, eating well, and laughing. Meanwhile, Ethan and Clarissa, the director and the model, were officially vagrants in one of the most expensive cities in the world. Ethan's stomach rumbled loudly, breaking the sad silence. I hate you, Ethan. Clarissa whispered weakly into the cold air. I hate myself too, Ethan replied in his mind, closing his eyes, hoping it was all just a nightmare. But the cold on his skin was too real to deny. 3 days. For 3 days, Ethan and Clarissa lived like vagrants on the streets of Paris. The city, hailed as the most romantic in the world, had become an open-air prison that tortured them. There were no expensive perfumes on their bodies anymore, replaced by the smell of sour sweat mixed with dust. The designer clothes they wore when they left Ethan's silk polo and Clarissa's fitted dress now looked ridiculous, wrinkled, dirty, and unable to fight the bone-chilling autumn cold. Ethan's stomach ached. His hunger was no longer a simple rumble but a physical pain that made him dizzy. Beside him, Clarissa leaned against the damp wall of a metro station, her face pale and her lips chapped. The woman, who once always looked fresh thanks to expensive beauty treatments, now resembled a local beggar. I need to eat, Ethan, Clarissa whined, her voice weak, with no strength left for insults. Do what a man is supposed to do, Ethan swallowed bitterly. His dignity as a former director had been surrendered long ago for survival. Yesterday, he tried to sell his expensive watch to passers-by, but they thought it was stolen or fake and avoided him. Today, he had no other choice. Ethan stood up on trembling legs and crossed the street to a boulangerie. The smell of freshly baked bread wafted through the air, piercing his nose and making his mouth water. He saw a tourist who had just finished eating and left their tray on an outdoor table. Half a sandwich and a bit of cold coffee remained. In a swift motion, like a thief, Ethan snatched the piece of sandwich. Hey, get out of here! A waiter who saw him shouted, waving a napkin as if shooing a fly. Ethan ran back to Clarissa, clutching the piece of bread bitten by another person as if it were a gold bar. Here, he offered the bread to Clarissa. She looked at it with disgust. It's leftovers, Ethan. You're giving me garbage. Eat it or starve, Ethan yelled, his emotions exploding. He bit into one end of the bread greedily, not caring about hygiene. Seeing Ethan eat, Clarissa's primal instinct kicked in. Disgust was overcome by hunger. She snatched the rest of the bread from Ethan's hand and devoured it like an animal. In seconds, the bread was gone. They both panted, looking at each other with empty eyes. They weren't full, but something in their stomachs allowed them to think more clearly, which led them to the harsh reality of how ruined their lives were. This is all your fault, Clarissa said suddenly, wiping crumbs from her lips. Ethan's eyes widened. My fault? You insisted on Paris. You pushed me to empty Aurora's fortune. If it weren't for your lavish lifestyle, I wouldn't have done this. Oh, sure. Blame me now. Clarissa stood up, her voice rising and attracting the attention of passers-by. You're the fool who thought he was smart, a great director, yet tricked by your own wife. That wife of yours is the devil, and you're the moron for not realizing the suitcase was switched. What kind of man can't tell the difference between the weight of gold and bricks? Shut up. Ethan also stood up, his face flushed. If you weren't so busy flirting with everyone before you met me, maybe you would have used that brain of yours to help think. You bastard! Clarissa shoved Ethan hard. Ethan, furious and exhausted, lost control. He slapped Clarissa. Smack. The sound was sharp. Clarissa staggered back, holding her cheek with a look of disbelief. In New York, Ethan had always pampered her, worshipped her like a queen. Now, on the cold sidewalk of Paris, that man had hit her. You hit me, Clarissa whispered, trembling. And then she screamed. She lunged at Ethan, scratching his face and pulling his hair. They fought on the sidewalk like two stray cats battling for territory. People around them stopped. Some took out their phones to record, while others called the police. There was no romance left, no true love they had boasted about while betraying Aurora. Only pure hatred remained, two sinners torturing each other in the hell they had created for themselves. Suddenly, two French police officers arrived and separated them, pulling Ethan away and pushing Clarissa back. The officer shouted in rapid, authoritative French. Ethan just raised his hands, trying to explain in broken English that they were tourists who had run out of money. Seeing their passports, the officer simply shook his head. He warned them not to cause any more trouble and sent them away. Wounded, covered in scratches, and with their hearts broken, they walked away, separated by a 6-foot gulf of silence. As night fell, they found a quiet corner near a park with free Wi-Fi. Ethan's phone had 5% battery left. It was their last lifeline to the world. Check the news from the States, Ethan said. He still harbored a small hope that Aurora had taken pity and lifted the block, or that some friend would lend him money. Trembling, Ethan turned on his data. A flood of notifications came in, not messages of help, but demands and insults from online loan collectors, for whom Clarissa had listed him as an emergency contact. Ethan ignored them and opened Instagram. The first post was from the official account of Aurora's company, posted just an hour ago. There was Aurora on a podium at a prestigious business event, wearing an elegant red dress, holding a Businesswoman of the Year award. Her face was radiant, her smile full of confidence. Beside her, Sophia, her daughter, was also smiling, holding a bouquet of flowers. The caption read, "Thank you for this award. This success is for my daughter and my incredible team. It turns out that getting rid of unnecessary dead weight is the key to running faster. Life is beautiful when you surround yourself with loyal people." Number, new chapter, number success, number no drama. Ethan read the caption over and over, getting rid of unnecessary dead weight. That dead weight was him. In the comments section, hundreds of people congratulated her. Some of Ethan's friends, whom he used to treat with Aurora's money, also commented, praising Aurora and throwing shade at the missing husband. Look at this. Ethan passed the phone to Clarissa. She looked at the photo, saw how beautiful Aurora was, saw the real diamond on Aurora's neck, the very one that should have been hers if Ethan's plan had worked. The envy that burned in Clarissa's chest was so intense, she felt like she might vomit blood. She won, Clarissa whispered weakly. She really won. She's over there celebrating while we're fighting over scraps of a sandwich here. Suddenly, the phone screen went dark. The low battery logo flashed and then disappeared. The screen turned black, dead. Their last connection to the world was severed. Their hope died with the phone. Ethan dropped the phone to the ground, buried his face in his knees, and began to cry. Not a cry of true remorse, but the cry of a loser who cannot accept his defeat. Aurora. Ethan moaned to the Paris sky. His voice was lost in the wind. In the distance, the Eiffel Tower glowed like a giant middle finger pointed at them by the world. Ethan understood that this was no longer about survival. It was instant karma. Aurora didn't need to get her hands dirty to kill them. She would just let them live, and time would slowly torture them until they went mad. That night, for the first time, Ethan missed Aurora's lectures, her simple cooking, and the warmth of a home he once considered boring. But all of that now seemed millions of light years away, unreachable by the dirty hands of a traitor. 2 weeks passed. Paris was no longer the city of light but a cold tomb for Ethan's dignity. The winter chill was beginning to set in, freezing the last remnants of his humanity. Clarissa was gone. 3 days ago, the woman had disappeared. She left with an elderly foreign man she met in a bar, trading her body for a hot soup and a bed. She left Ethan alone, hugging his empty Louis Vuitton suitcase in a foul-smelling corridor of a metro station. When immigration police finally conducted a routine raid, Ethan didn't run. He surrendered with a lost look in his eyes, accepting his fate. Expired passport, expired visa. Illegal, the officer said coldly as he handcuffed him. Inside the vehicle that would take him to the deportation center, Ethan saw his reflection in the window. He was no longer a director or a husband. He was just a piece of trash, ready to be returned to the United States to face an even crueler reality. The Delta flight landed at JFK as a heavy rain fell over New York. The sky was gray and bleak, like the future of the man sitting in the last seat of economy class between 2 sturdy immigration officers. Ethan Sterling was home, but his return was very different from his departure 2 weeks ago. There was no VIP lounge, no champagne, no arrogant smile. He wore an old sweatshirt given to him by French social services. His face was gaunt, covered in a rough beard, and his eyes were sunken and lifeless. The smell of his body was a mixture of sour sweat and hopelessness. As the plane's wheels touched the runway, Ethan remembered the moment he sent that cruel message to Aurora. "Goodbye, poor divorcee," he had written. The irony hit him so hard he felt nauseous. Now, he was the poor one, poor in wealth, poor in dignity, and poor in morals. "Let's go," the officer beside him ordered as the plane came to a stop. They guided Ethan out. He had hoped to sneak out of the airport and disappear into the alleys of New York. But Aurora was a chess master who always thought 10 moves ahead. She hadn't just blocked his cards, she had also ensured a proper welcome for her husband. Just as he stepped off the jet bridge, 4 uniformed NYPD officers were waiting for him. One of them held a red folder. "Are you Mr. Ethan Sterling?" the officer asked. Ethan nodded weakly. His knees were trembling. "You are under arrest on charges of embezzling $15 million in funds from the Irini Seja Corporation, forgery of documents, and theft of jewelry. Here is the arrest warrant." Ethan couldn't defend himself. Click. The cold handcuffs closed around his wrists. That sound was more terrifying than a death sentence. The newly arrived passengers stared at him. Some whispered, others recorded with their phones. Ethan hung his head, wishing the floor would open up and swallow him. 3 days later, in the visitation room of a detention center, Ethan sat on a cold metal chair in an orange prison jumpsuit. His head had been shaved. He looked 10 years older. He waited nervously. His lawyer had told him someone wanted to see him. The door opened. A scent of expensive perfume wafted in, a familiar scent to Ethan, the smell of home, of luxury he once squandered. Aurora walked in. She was stunning in an elegant navy blue dress, her hair perfectly styled and her makeup subtle. She carried an authentic Hermes bag, not a suitcase full of garbage. Aurora sat across from Ethan, separated by a glass table. There was no emotion on her face, only a calm that foretold a storm. "Aurora," Ethan's voice broke, filled with restrained sobs. "Aurora, forgive me." Aurora stared at him. "Hello, Ethan. How was your vacation? I heard you were deported for begging on the streets of Paris. What a disgrace for a former director. I was wrong, Aurora. I was so wrong." Ethan knelt beside the table, trying to reach for Aurora's hand, but she pulled it away in disgust. "Please, drop the charges, Aurora. I don't want to go to jail. I'll do anything. I'll be your servant, your driver, whatever. For Sophia, Aurora." "Sophia needs a father." Hearing Sophia's name, Aurora's eyes hardened. "Don't you ever say my daughter's name again. You lost that right when you tried to steal her future to have fun with your mistress. It was Clarissa who forced me. She pushed me into it." Ethan tried to shift the blame, his cowardice on full display. Aurora let out a short, piercing laugh, always blaming others. "You know, Ethan, I've known about you two for 6 months. I kept quiet. I gave you a chance. I waited for you to come to your senses. But what did you do? You planned to empty my fortune. You thought the attorney was a fool? You thought I didn't know you had forged my signature?" Ethan's eyes widened. "So, it was all a trap, all of it." "Yes," Aurora replied calmly. "The $1 million I transferred to your debit card were phantom funds from a virtual account designed to self-lock with any overseas transaction. The property documents you carried were just color photocopies with no legal validity. And the suitcase," Aurora smiled, a smile that chilled Ethan's blood. "The suitcase was my masterpiece. I wanted you to feel what it's like to be at the peak of hope and then fall to the bottom of reality. When you opened that suitcase in the 5-star hotel and saw the old robes, that was my moment of satisfaction. You traded a diamond wife for bricks, so I gave you real bricks." Ethan sobbed. His heart was broken, not from remorse, but from the understanding that he had been utterly defeated in intelligence, in strategy, and in morals by the woman he had underestimated. "How long will I be in jail, Aurora?" he asked weakly. "My lawyer is preparing the cases: embezzlement, forgery, theft. With the evidence I have, no less than 12 years, Aurora replied coldly. "And when you get out, you'll be old, poor, and alone. No one will hire an ex-convict." "You're evil, Aurora. You're evil." Aurora stood up. "You planned to leave me and your daughter with nothing. You wanted us to suffer while you had fun in Europe. I'm just giving you back what you sowed, Ethan. This is your harvest." Aurora adjusted her dress, ready to leave. "Oh, by the way, one more thing." Aurora turned before exiting. "Our divorce is final. I have full custody of Sophia. All assets have been returned to me. And your parents' house, which you mortgaged for your online gambling last year, the bank was about to foreclose. But I bought it. Your parents are living there out of my compassion, so don't expect them to help you." Ethan collapsed from his chair onto the cold floor, whimpering soundlessly. He was completely annihilated, stripped of everything by his own greed. "Goodbye, Ethan. Enjoy your new world," Aurora said, and walked out without looking back. Epilogue. 1 year later. A luxurious rooftop restaurant in a Manhattan skyscraper was filled with laughter. Aurora was at the center, a wine glass in hand, surrounded by partners and friends, celebrating her company's expansion into the international market. "Congratulations, Mrs. Sterling. Your achievements this year have been incredible," a foreign investor praised her. "Thank you. It's thanks to the team's effort and peace of mind." After throwing out the toxic garbage, Aurora replied with a meaningful smile. In a corner, Sophia, now 6, played happily with her nanny. She was growing up smart and happy, far from her father's shadow. Aurora walked to the balcony, gazing at the glittering city lights. The wind caressed her face. She felt free, immensely free. She remembered the latest news about Clarissa. She had been arrested at the Italian border for illegal immigration and prostitution. She was now in a women's prison there, with no visitors. Meanwhile, Ethan was suffering in Rikers Island, a victim of harassment from other inmates who despised white-collar criminals. Justice had found its way. Aurora took a sip of wine. The taste was sweet as victory. She had learned a valuable lesson in life. Never wake a sleeping lioness, and never underestimate a silent wife. Because when a good wife goes bad, even the devil sits down to take notes. Aurora smiled. She returned to the party, leaving the dark past behind and embracing a future as bright as the diamond her husband could never steal. 5 years later. The golden afternoon sun filtered softly through the manicured trees of a private villa in the Hamptons. The air smelled of hydrangeas and peace. Far from the noise of New York City and the memories of trials and prisons, Aurora sat in a wicker chair, reading a book. She was no longer the Aurora from 5 years ago who waited anxiously for her husband. Today's Aurora looked younger, her skin healthy, the worry lines erased from her face. "Mom, Mom, look!" A cheerful shout interrupted Aurora's thoughts. Sophia, now 10, ran up the stairs, her long hair flowing, her face radiant. She was holding a small golden trophy. "Did you win the piano recital again?" Aurora asked, opening her arms to hug her daughter. "Yes. The judges said my Fioralisa's was perfect, and Uncle Adrian said my tempo was just right." Aurora beamed, kissing Sophia's head. "My girl is amazing. I'm so proud of you." The name Adrian that Sophia mentioned made Aurora turn. From the garden path, a handsome man in a white linen shirt was approaching. Adrian, a renowned landscape architect Aurora had met on a charity project 2 years ago. This man was completely different from Ethan. Adrian never asked about Aurora's bank accounts. He never asked for expensive things. In fact, he always reminded Aurora to rest. Adrian loved Sophia as if she were his own daughter, not as a means to manipulate her mother. "Congratulations, princess," Adrian greeted, handing Sophia a strawberry ice cream. "Thanks, Uncle Adrian." Sophia took the ice cream and ran to a hammock. Adrian sat beside Aurora and took her hand. "She's growing up so happy." "You've done it, Aurora." Aurora watched Sophia, her heart filled with warmth. Before, her greatest fear was that Sophia would grow up with the trauma of a broken family, but it turned out that removing the poison was what allowed the tree to flourish. "I used to think my happiness was ruined when Ethan betrayed me," Aurora whispered. "It turns out it was God's way of clearing the path for true happiness." "The past is the past, Aurora," Adrian said gently. "Ethan paid his debt. You got your justice. Now is your time to reap your successes." Aurora nodded. It was true. The last she'd heard, Ethan had been released from prison last month. He was working odd jobs, living in a cramped shared apartment, and was in poor health. No Clarissa, no wealth, no respect. But strangely, Aurora no longer felt satisfaction. She felt neutral. The anger was gone because Ethan no longer mattered. "You're right," Aurora replied. She looked at Adrian, then at the ring on her finger. A ring Adrian had given her the week before. "I've won," Aurora whispered to herself. Not because Ethan was destroyed, but because Aurora had risen. She had raised her daughter well, had grown her business even larger, and most importantly, had opened her heart again to a healthy, true love. The sun set, leaving a purple-hued sky. "Let's go have dinner," Adrian invited. They walked into the warm, bright villa. Sophia's laughter, the smell of food, and the warmth of a small family filled the room. It might be dark outside, but in Aurora's heart, the sun had just risen, and it was brighter than ever. Dear listeners who have accompanied me until the end of my story, how did you find today's tale? I'm curious about the impression it has left in your hearts and the thoughts it has sparked in you. Please feel free to share your impressions and opinions in the comments. I will carefully read each of them. The likes and subscriptions you give me are the greatest source of strength and motivation for creating better stories in the future. Please don't forget to do so. I sincerely wish that your life is always filled with happiness and good fortune, and that the warm light in your hearts never fades.